my friends and neighbors, I've got 2 or 3 things to say to you to start with. First of all, I am really glad to be home in the South. That is a great thing. I remember your Commissioner of Agriculture said when I ran for governor in 1970, I'll never forget what Florida did for me in 1976. My wife spent 113 days campaigning in Florida. Before that, most significant primary election. And you gave me those expressions of support. In the general election, Florida electors voted for me. This spring, as you know, it was a very tough campaign. You gave me another strong expression of support. You've established a wonderful tradition, which I know you're going to continue to carry out in 4 weeks, right? I might say that since I've been a leader with integrity, sensitivity, courage, who could head this commission to re-cement relations with this crucial part of the world, and I settled on the best man I could find, and that's Bob Graham. To help get the home loan industry back on its feet. We're making good progress with that. Every month for the last few months, 4 or 5 months in a row, we've got an increase in new home starts. And I'm just grateful to you and wanted to point out very quickly some of the reasons why my ties to Florida are permanent. There are a lot of things I could talk about tonight. I'm just going to talk about one. Because as you go around the country as Democrats running for the state legislature, it's important for you to carry a message of sharp comparison between the principles of our party, represented by Franklin Roosevelt, Lyndon Johnson, Jack Kennedy, Harry Truman, who've seen clearly the same things we see. Those of us who grew up in the Great Depression remember the elderly living in poor folks' homes with no sense of self-decency or respect and no security. And Franklin Roosevelt proposed Social Security. Republicans were against it, but it passed. We believe that a man who works or a woman who works ought to be paid a decent wage. This has not always been the case. I remember the first minimum wage bill proposed when I was a very young man, 25 cents an hour. Democrats supported it, finally got it passed, Republicans against it. My first job as a high school senior at the minimum wage of 40 cents. That enormous increase from 25 to 40 cents. Democrats supported, Republicans opposed. He said that I would like to you tonight as a president, responsible for our nation's defense, because this is an issue that has been distorted too much in this campaign. It is a crucial issue that affects the life of every person who lives in this country, perhaps the entire world. Republicans were in the White House 8 years before I got there. My background is in the military. I'm a Naval Academy graduate, a submarine officer. For 7 of those years, our nation's expenditure for defense went down. In 8 years, our defense commitment decreased by 35%. Since I've been in the White House, every single year we've had a steady, predictable, orderly, constructive increase in the commitment that our nation has made for defense. This is important. This is important, but I'd like to remind you that the reason for a nation to have a strong defense is not to kill or be killed. Is to keep peace. We've kept the nation at peace. And it also weakens the ties that bind our country to our Western European allies and the other allies around the country. Like it might lead a potential adversary to misjudge us and to challenge us in a way that would be suicidal, based on a distorted picture of what our nation treaty is a very serious development. And the other thing is, no matter who's in the White House, you have crises that come up. I've not been there one day since I was inaugurated that there wasn't a troubled spot in the world somewhere that directly impinged on my decisions. I and all my predecessors, Republican and Democratic, when those troubled spots arose, have tried to deal with them in a diplomatic way, without the use of American military forces, to negotiate and to work them out, not through weakness, but through strength. Repeatedly, for the last 8 or 10 years, my opponent has time after time after time called for the injection of American military forces into those sensitive, troubled areas in our own hemisphere, in Ecuador, in Cuba, in Korea, in the Middle East, Cyprus, Angola, Pakistan. 8 or 10 times, either as a candidate for president or potential candidate for president, he has called for the use of American military forces in those troubled areas. I don't have any idea what he would do if he was in Oval Office, but that pattern concerns me deeply. The point I want to make to you in closing is that a lot is at stake in this election. And your responsibility as supporters of the Florida Democratic legislative candidates and as future members of the legislature as well are the same responsibilities as mine. We represent the same party, the same concept, the same principles, the same ideals, the same heritage, the same commitments. There's no way to separate you from me. The presidency is a lonely job because I deal with problems that are important to you. If I deal with them properly, with sound judgment, in accordance with that heritage that I've just outlined to you, you may not ever know about it. But if I make a mistake or misjudgment, that potential crisis can affect your life or the life of everyone on earth. It is a lonely job. But I don't feel neglected or secluded or isolated because of the partnership I've just described to you. Because I've got people like Reubin Askew and Bob Graham and others to work with me, to represent you, and many of you in this room feel that you're part of my administration. And as a Democratic president, the nominee of our party, the titular head of the Democratic Party itself, I'm part of your organization. And as you take your message in this next 4 weeks to the people of Florida to be re-elected or elected to the state legislature, hope you'll remember those principles that do not change, the things that bind us together. We've got the greatest nation on earth. We have never had, when this country was unified, a question that we could not answer, or a problem that we could not solve, or an obstacle that we could not overcome. We've got some problems now, yes. But don't let anybody fool you about this nation being weak or about us being debilitated, or our problems being insoluble, because we face much more problems, much more serious ones, than the ones we face now. The First and Second World Wars, the Korean War, the Vietnam War that divided us, the Great Depression, the social changes between blacks and whites in the South, the Watergate scandals, all those things were much more serious than what we face now. And I'd just like to remind you is that we've got a great country, a unified people, a strong party, a platform on which we can run with pride, a future that holds promise and confidence, not despair and fear and trepidation. We've always been on the cutting edge of progress. Our party, our nation, are the greatest on earth. And if we are victorious on November the 4th, with common commitments and hard work, and there's no shortcut that I know in politics, we'll make the greatest nation on earth even greater in the years ahead. That's my goal.